Hello, Mr. Marek, and thank you very much for making time today for AeroTime and for sharing some insights and details about what you've been doing at Air Serbia and the very interesting moment that this airline is going through at the moment. So Air Serbia this month is turning 10 after it rebranded in 2013. The airline itself was a bit older. It comes back from...
Not a bit, way older.
Yes, almost 100 years old if we take the very first original airline of Serbia. But in these last 10 years, a lot has happened, and particularly the last couple of years of this post-COVID recovery, there's been quite a lot going on at Air Serbia, and you have very interesting, I would say even ambitious plans to continue growing. So first of all, I would like to ask you about the current situation at Air Serbia. What are the main facts and figures? How many passengers are you currently carrying? And what's been the evolution these last couple of years?
So definitely thank you for the invitation and opportunity for the interview. I would say that, as you rightly mentioned, we will celebrate 10 years anniversary. So we wanted this year to be the year to be remembered. So we set quite ambitious plan and we prepared for that plan. However, despite being born optimist, we were still aiming a bit more conservatively. So despite that the growth is like double digit, while Europe is still kind of struggling to reach 2019 level, we are over surpassing even our own expectations. So originally we were aiming that this year we will try to reach 3.5 million passenger. Now we can already tell that 3.5 million we will reach within the October. So it's definitely demand is there. So it's not that we wish, let's say, for this growth what we are doing, but demand is there. So you have option either you address and you satisfy the demand or somebody else will do. So we choose that we want to be the one as a national airline which will address the demand. So we plan this year, I can now rather tell what we did, not what we planned. So we opened 23 new destinations this year, including one new long haul, which is Chicago on 17th of May, which we basically reopened it after 30 years basically stop. We surpassed 3 million passenger in September. Our biggest success before was in 2019, where the whole year was 2.8 million. So with the latest, let's say, forecast, we aim now that we will be over 4 million passenger for the first time in history this year. And that's not only on the passenger side, it's the same follow on the revenue side. For the first time in history, we will surpass €500 million in revenue, which is also very significant. And we are seeing all KPIs basically to grow, being the RASK, being the passenger numbers, being the transfer traffic. Basically, the demand is so strong in this region that if we would have more capacity and we would deploy, we will fill it up as well. So it's basically just proving that whatever was forecasted during COVID or after COVID, all these forecasts basically turned to be wrong. Nobody really expected what the market will look like, and people completely change their habits, their travel patterns, the booking window change. Basically, you should forget what was before. You should just adapt what is currently on the market. So we see very positive trends on the market, as we mentioned today on the conference as well. Country is developing dramatically, Belgrade as a city as well. There are a lot of new things which will be ahead of us, like for example Expo 27, which will further stimulate additional growth. So we are very positive for the future.
And you are also profitable.
We are profitable. We reach the profitability. We returned to profitability after the COVID already last year. And because of this growth which we achieve this year, the same profitability we achieve already in a first half of the year. So basically, same profit like in 2022 we achieve now in 6 months. So we anticipating that the profit will be very high, and at the moment we are operating on double-digit profit margin.
Mm-hmm. Besides the increase in demand that you mentioned, my understanding is that there was also an exercise in cost reduction in recent times that has managed to basically support this move towards profitability. What can you tell us about the measures that were taken by Air Serbia in this recent past?
We took a lot of measures during the COVID. So basically, during COVID, we actually never stopped. We stopped only for a couple of weeks, but then we turned the function into more repatriation flying, delivering the cargo, medical equipment, and so on. So we've been constantly operating. So we kept all our operational, let's say, stuff being ready for the future growth, and we were getting ready for that. On the other hand, we took the opportunity to fast forward some of the project in terms of the IT systems, internal ERP systems, and so on. And we also look for more efficient airlines. So we downsize in many, let's say, non-operational area. And now all the growth we are achieving with more or less the same amount of the system support areas, like in terms of administration, and we are growing only operational people. So this is giving you the certain flavor and, let's say, opportunity that you are reducing your, let's say, fixed cost. On the operational side, we are growing according to the capacity. So, for example, we start this year with 1,000 employees. Now we are already having more than 1,400. So it's just showing you it's basically a significant increase, but most of that increase is coming from the operational area.
For people that might not be familiar with Air Serbia or that haven't flown Air Serbia yet, how would you define your product and your business model as a full-service airline, as a hybrid? Tell us in a few words how you see your position in the market.
Look, I don't like really the word the hybrid, but it's mostly now how people are framing the airlines is mostly fitting into the legacy hub and spoke hybrid, let's say, airline. I would call it rather like we are leading regional airline in this part of the Europe. We are offering dual class, let's say, service. So on the except our turboprop operation, where at the moment we are not offering the business class, but we are looking into the options to offer it. On the narrow body fleet, we are offering basically the business class product, movable curtain, catering in terms of the business class and all the amenities. On the let's say economy class product, up to now we've been purely having like buy and board and offering only water and some cookies or chips. But this year, first of all, after the, let's say, we returned to profitability, we decided to reinvest some of the profit also into improving the product. So we introduced before the summer season the sandwiches, free offer of the sandwiches in a flight which are more than 2 hours 45 minutes, and we are constantly looking into how we will improve the product. And we also operate the long haul where we have the normal full let's say business class product and economy product. We still offer everything, let's say, free, despite some of the European airlines already introducing, for example, alcohol is chargeable or first drink is free and so on. We don't planning that. We're planning to have that product, and we plan to further develop that product.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the different fares that you're offering, you mentioned in economy class you offer some things for free that other airlines don't offer. But I think you also have different levels of economy class fare. Can you describe us what's in them and what can people more or less get for each different level?
So we basically have so-called, let's say, branded fares. So we continue this typical bundling which is happening now in the market. So we have light fares, which is basically without the check-in baggage. So people who want to just travel light with a carry-on, we don't have any surcharge of the carry-on baggage. So purely difference between light and, let's say, standard is that you have a checking bag free in terms of the standard, and there is very small, let's say, upsell for that. Also, let's say, some in terms of the condition, in terms of the changes, refund, and so on. What is a bit different that our next brand, which is a Comfort, we also introduced, and was kind of very well perceived on the market, successful. We introduced a free access to the business lounge here in Belgrade, which is our own operated lounge. So if you are buying the third brand, which is the highest in terms of economy, you have basically checking luggage, you have the changes, you have the refunds option, and you have also access to our premium lounge in the Belgrade. That's maybe a bit different from the other airlines, and we are planning to further, let's say, develop and differentiate this. But on the overall level, we will not reinvent the wheel. It's basically we are following the market trends in that matter.
Mm-hmm. Before sitting down here, we were chatting a little bit, and you mentioned that you have a pretty high percentage of transit traffic. So people that are connecting in Belgrade between different flights. And so basically Air Serbia is kind of emerging as a pretty big regional connector for this region, but also you have some long-haul flights as well. What can you tell us about this? What are the numbers right now in terms of connecting traffic, and what are your plans to continue basically developing this segment of the market?
Look, it's actually part of our strategy. If you look maybe in last 2 years, 2 years ago we had something close to over 40 destinations. Now we have over 80. So you reach the scales which is actually allowing you to continue to build on the connectivity because you have sufficient, let's say, network to offer, and the segment which you can easily grow and also address the seasonality is actually the transfer O&D passenger. And from that perspective, we mentioned today on conference as well, the Beograd airport itself as our hub is pretty much well served in terms of the direct demand point-to-point routes. There is hardly some routes which can be found now, which can be purely open and serve as a point-to-point route, because there is already all of them are covered. And those which are still unserved, they don't have yet enough point-to-point demand to justify the direct route, for example, by LCC operator or even by us or somebody else. So any kind of new route you want to add to this ecosystem will need to rely on the network. So as a first part of the strategy, we build the network. Now we are moving to the second phase. The network will still continue to grow, but will more densify to improve the connectivity, because main connectivity will be from the gross. And we see that it was proven this year. At the beginning of the year, we still have around 25-28% of the connecting passenger. Now during summer, we are already reaching in 40%, which is significant growth. So one of the main growth actually came from enlarging our network and improving the connectivity. From those 23 destinations we opened this year, it was kind of balance between, let's say, point-to-point leisure destination, but also those which are improving and adding into the connectivity, and we will continue to do that in the future.
Mm-hmm. And what are the main markets driving this connectivity growth? Is it equally distributed through the network, or some markets are more prone to connect?
It's not equally, but we want to position ourselves as a regional carrier in this region. So high focus on connecting destination we are placing within the region, because that's economically viable. It would not make sense if we will try to connect somebody from Baltic states via Belgrade to the Spain. It's not really economically viable because you have multiple other options. But from the region, let's say former Yugoslavia or what we call wider Balkan region, we are operating with the ATR, which is a perfect aircraft for that connectivity. We are increasing the frequencies, and Beograd is kind of not only natural center of the gravity, you have some point-to-point demand, and the transfer is coming on top. We have still differentiation in the region. I mean, if you compare, for example, Tirana, which is mostly connecting traffic, versus, for example, Montenegro, which is mostly point-to-point traffic, there are the differences, but we believe that overall within the region we can grow. And any kind of new destinations which we will plan, for example, on the east, like in Romania or Bulgaria, those are the destinations which will purely be connecting, because the point-to-point demand is very limited. It will be maybe, let's say, only 20%, maybe less, and majority of that would be connecting. So we couldn't address those destinations before we built the network which we can connect to.
Mm-hmm. In terms of fleet, you currently have 24 aircraft. 22. And you have an interesting mix of long-haul A330s. You have A319, A320. You recently started getting Embraers, E190, 195, ATRs that you mentioned. What are your plans in terms of fleet? Because I think that you recently got your third A330, or you're about to get it.
Not yet. Yeah.
You're about to get it. Are there plans to increase? Let's go bit by bit. So long haul, you have currently 2 A330s, a third one on its way. That's
third and fourth.
And what are your plans in the long haul? You're planning to increase that, or?
So currently, basically, we returned to the long haul market in 2016 with opening of the New York, and it took some time because the network, as I mentioned, was not densified enough. It took some time that the line became profitable. But once became profitable, we were always looking what should be the second. And to decide for the second aircraft and second destination, it's a big, let's say, decision to make for the airline of our size. And we made that decision, I would say, as a kind of collateral benefit of the COVID, because we saw the big opportunity in reopening the China, because it's maybe not known to all the, let's say, readers or listeners that there is 4 countries in this region which doesn't require the visa for the Chinese travelers and vice versa. So there is not only business potential, but also tourist potential.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that actually, because I think Serbia is actually one of the countries which is relatively easy for Chinese tourists to visit.
And it's gateway. It's a gateway to the region, and it's geographic natural gateway also for connecting traffic. Yeah. So as a collateral benefit, we basically saw the great opportunity in opening the China. We opened the Tianjin still during the COVID restriction in China in December last year, and it was profitable from day one. And because of the limited frequencies still, which are restricted from the Chinese side, as a kind of benefit of that was that we could decide that, okay, now it's the time we go for Chicago. And we opened reopened Chicago after 30 years in 17th of May. It's also turned very successfully. And last week, we basically communicated we already transported first 25,000 passenger on the Chicago route, and we're planning to keep it during the winter. And based on that, we started to work on further development. For us, main development is now on the Chinese market, where we see potential. We secure traffic rights for Guangzhou and Shanghai. As soon as we will have the third and fourth aircraft, those are the markets which will come first. After that, we will further look into the North America. But there is a big difference, because North American routes for us are based a bit more on the diaspora and plus connecting from the region. While the Chinese market, it's not based on the diaspora. It's based on the basically leisure, corporate demand, business demand, let's say gateway to the region, gateway to the Europe. So it's a bit different strategies on those. Plus the Chinese routes has different seasonality, and they are more flat through the years. There is also the peak during the January, February. So it's fitting good into our strategy and development, because North American routes is same problem. In summer, you can fly even double daily to New York and you will fill it up. But in winter, you will hardly fill 3-4 weekly. That's a big difference. So while on the Chinese, you have that demand more, let's say, spread it through the year.
Are the US and China going to be potential vectors of further growth in the long haul, or are you looking at other new markets?
Look, I would say next 3-4 years is mostly China, North America, including the Canada, I would say, because there is always competition between if the next destination will be Toronto or Miami. So I would not just talk about the US. And once we, let's say, develop there, obviously next natural logic might be the Far East, like Japan, Korea, something like that.
So also wanted to ask you about the choice of Tianjin as a destination, which is a big city, but it's possibly not one of the first cities that comes to mind when thinking.
Look, it was not the free choice, because it was the only option which was available during the COVID, because there was a lot of restriction. For example, Hainan, which opened the route a couple of months before us, they've been able to fly from the Beijing into Belgrade, but they couldn't return to Beijing. They have to go to another, let's say, regional city because of the COVID restriction. And Tianjin, because of also their special, let's say, arrangement there, it was the one which was available for opening during the COVID. And also during the COVID, we were flying for medical help actually in the Tianjin. So, and because we were considering to be as a temporary, and once, market will open, we will shift to Beijing and some other point. But since the route turned to profitable, at the moment, no other European carrier is flying there. Before COVID, there was flying, I think, also LOT and Neos from Italy. Why we would change it if is it profitable? So we actually increasing now and going for 2 weekly frequencies starting from November.
Interesting.
Actually, we so much on a long haul and we skip the other part of the fleet. So just quickly to wrap up on that one. So on ATR, we actually, it's our main, I would say, aircraft for the regional connectivity expansion. We are one of the oldest operator in ATR in the region. We last year actually grounded for good our 200s, which been over 34 years old. And we now completely refleeted for ATR 72-600. Currently, we have 7 in operation. We have the LOI already signed for deliveries in Q1 for additional 3. There might be the delay because the landing gear is like growing problem within the, let's say, regional aircrafts. And, we saw the delays this year. We anticipated the delay next year, so we are planning for that. But, we will see how it will move out. In terms of Airbus, we are 319s, 320s. 319s, we will basically, as soon as we reach the end of the leases, we will phase them out and we will replace them with a 320, which is a bit now challenging because of the, let's say, last 1 month's development with the new technology and LEAP engines. A lot of aircrafts are not returning back to lessors. Airlines are extending the current, let's say, known mature technology instead of the new one because there is strong demand, but the, new aircraft deliveries plus problems on the new technology. So that segment is now a bit under stress. And Embraer, what we currently started to insource is our, let's say, aircraft which will fill the gap between ATR 72 seats and 320, because 319s basically will be phased out. It's fit well in a hub and spoke model, and we didn't want it to increase the complexity, so we doing it in kind of, I would say, wet lease, but it's more closer to the CPI model in the US, where basically we are working on that with Marathon Airlines, which are now growing the Embraer present. We are working for next year that it will be transformed to the full dump lease. So our cabin crew, our uniforms, cockpit crew will be from Marathon. We are looking some other synergies where we can basically, like if it will be deeply incorporated into Air Serbia, but it will not be operated by Air Serbia.
You mentioned the A319s progressively being phased out. You are actually one of the airlines that's still flying a sizable number of A319s. When we're seeing that many airlines are upgauging, even from A320 to A321s, I'm assuming if you are replacing these A319s, is it going to be a like-for-like replacement with the assumption that there might be there will be a capacity increase because of larger planes coming in, or you are planning to get even more planes?
More planes, both. So basically, we want to grow. So we will grow equally, let's say, our regional, so turboprop fleet, long-haul fleet, narrow-body fleet, but narrow-body fleet will be grow into 320 and the regional jet. But that's, as I mentioned, it will be via some capacity provider agreement. And of course, the existing 319 will be replaced.
Do you have any ballpark number of what's the goal of fleet expansion?
Look, at the moment, I can imagine that we can grow between 2 to 4 aircrafts a year. But again, any kind of planning in this environment is a bit difficult. What we want to keep, because always a problem when you grow, you will be less and less flexible. And we proved during COVID and now that we are very flexible to react on the market, and we want to keep that much flexibility as much as we can, because that reaction actually brought us a result, brought us back to profitability, and we want to keep it as much as we can. But I can imagine very easily that, let's say, in next 5 years, we will be aiming over 40, close to 50 aircrafts.
And just to wrap up the fleet question, the Embraers. Why Embraer when you're already an Airbus operator? For example, another option in the market is the A220, also a bit smaller than the A320s. Why did you go for Embraer, introducing a new fleet type, even if it's provided by a third party in this case?
It's an interesting discussion, but A220, except being rebranded from the original name into Airbus, it has nothing common with Airbus. So you cannot use the benefit of the commonality of a cockpit which you have between 319, 320, 330 in our case, where you can use the same pilot. There is no basically benefit. If you introduce it will be treated as a new aircraft type. You will need new camo engineers, new pilots, new crew, and so on. Now, there is no benefit for us from that technology at the moment, because if you actually compare A220 and Embraer, majority of A220 operators, if we don't look into the big ones like, for example, Delta and Korean, they are single fleet operator. Like Air Baltic, their business model is like single fleet, no complexity, and using that model which has a short range and long range. For us, it's different because we are hub and spoke. We operate also long haul and short haul. For us, it's a feeding aircraft. And from that perspective, the ownership cost is very important. And this new technology being A220, even new Embraer E2, you will save maybe 18 to 20% of direct operating cost. But that direct operating cost will not offset the high ownership cost. So you will increase basically the cost of your feeding to your hub, and it will become unprofitable. So for us, it was a very natural choice that, E1, mid-age, matured aircraft, ownership cost is super low. The aircraft don't face any significant issues now like the new technology one. And, it was natural choice that there is no other option on the market than the Embraer. But at the same time, we didn't want to do that, exercise with a new aircraft type, complexity, and so on. And we wanted to also prove if that is work or not. That's why the choice of, going kind of pilot project with Marathon, which starting as a wet lease and will be expanding for CPI model, it was a logical win-win solution.
You mentioned there's been 23 new destinations added this year. The previous year, in 2022, there were 20. So you have...
Some was new, some was reopened, but yeah, 20.
So you've basically added 43 destinations in the last couple of years. I've seen that many of those are actually in places where you had little presence. South of Europe seems to be an area of growth for you. New destinations in Italy, Spain, Portugal, Turkey, in the Eastern Mediterranean. Is this because this was an underserved market? How are those new destinations performing in the short and medium haul in some cases?
Look, historically, the Air Serbia network was very much built around the diaspora. But the diaspora, it's a market which is there, which is given, it will travel, but the gross potential of that market is not significant. It will grow, but it's nothing significant. But you need to diversify, let's say, your portfolio. You cannot be just, ethnic airline. So the next logical choice was to expand on the leisure market. And that was the main expansion, let's say, in last 2 years. And it proved to be significant. And especially like one of the examples, as you mentioned, Spain. Before COVID, we were flying 2 weekly Barcelona and 2 weekly Madrid. There was also Vueling on the route on the Barcelona. Now, basically, we fly up to 11 Barcelona, we have 3 Madrid, we have Malaga, we have Valencia. We, on the other side of the peninsula, we opened, let's say, Lisbon, Porto. In Italy, before COVID, we had 3 destinations, now we have 10. So it's really this high, I would call it rather high-end leisure. It's really proved to be a very successful factor. And as a, let's say, economy is growing here, people have more disposable income, they more spontaneously deciding on the travel. This leisure market is a significant engine of the growth. So we have
outbound from Serbia. So it's mostly...
It's going actually both ways. But majority is, of course, outbound from Serbia. But we see that it's also expanding from the other end, because still the Balkan has kind of this image of the adventure, I would say tourism in a way. The culinary and gastronomy here is very particular. You have really nice culture mix here. So it's going, let's say, both ways. We see that. So I would say there are like 3 kind of pillars in that growth and destination. So we continue to serve the, let's say, the diaspora ethnic driven markets. And we are improving the connectivity not to be just for the Serbia, but for the region. The second pillar is basically leisure, which is working very well. And the third one is the connectivity. So you are just building the connectivity that you are not just enabling that for the Serbian market, which is mostly point to point, but for the region.
Mm-hmm. You are one of the, let's say, few airlines left in Europe that is kind of unaligned, where we're seeing the big groups also swallowing some of the smaller players. You also had until relatively recently, I think until 2020, I'm not sure about the exact date, but you had a very strong link with Etihad, which then sold a part of its pretty large equity stake back to the Serbian government. So what is the relationship right now with Etihad? Are they still shareholders? Are you still cooperate on a commercial, on the commercial sphere?
Look, they are still shareholder. We are discussing that part of the matter. When they migrated to Amadeus, they basically stopped co-share cooperation because they don't fly anymore. Also to Belgrade, so that is not really a touch point. We are discussing the co-chair, to renew the co-chair, but it has nothing to do with the shareholding. It's like purely commercially driven, let's say, aspect. We are still part of the frequent flyer program, but we are looking into developing our own. But I would say fundamentally, in my past career, I was in all 3 alliances, representing the smaller, in one case, larger carrier. And you don't really get much benefit out of being in alliance. Equity alliance is something different, like when you have investment and there are more synergies. But purely as an alliance, you don't really get anything in, and you will get a lot of limitation. And on contrary, since we are developing and we can leverage that we have access to the Balkan region, not many others has, and that's our leverage in the negotiation. So we have something we can offer to all, let's say, parties which want to cooperate. So on one hand, we have very good cooperation with Air France, and it's our number 1 co-chair partner. It's a part of the Sky team. At the same time, we develop the very strong ties, and we are further developing with the Turkish Airlines, which is Star. And at the same time, we sign and develop the co-chair with the Qatar this year, which is, one word. So you can cooperate airline to airline basis, and you can achieve more then choose one alliance where, you will be limited to cooperate only with that alliance. So I'm not ruling out in the near future. But at the time where we are now, we need to first develop more in a size and in our penetration to the market before we will really see some value. So once we will be, let's say, kind of equal, because even in alliances you have kind of like inner circle, outer rim, where you have cooperation based on joint venture and so on, and then you have the feeders which don't have the same benefits. So it's a tricky question. Each alliance is different. I would say in near future maybe yes, but not at the moment.
You have also JetBlue as a partner.
We started a co-chair with the JetBlue this year. It took us some time because you need two parties to agree on, and still with our size which we had, we didn't have so much to offer in the past. But after expanding the JFK to Delhi, opening the Chicago, and having some more future plans in that market, we've been able to develop that cooperation with JetBlue.
Mm-hmm. So basically this cooperation is based on providing more seamless connectivity.
It's basically co-chair. So, you have three levels, like you have interline, you have next level, which is SPA, and then you have the co-chair, and next level, I say you have the joint venture. So co-chair is giving much more options for both parties to market the product.
Mm-hmm. About the frequent flyer program, you mentioned the existing relationship with Etihad. What options are you considering? Launching your own or getting affiliated with one of the existing?
We explore many options. One of the options we explore more deeply was with Turkish Airlines Miles and Smiles. That offer is still on the table. At the same time, we've been approached actually proactively by Air France-KLM to join their program, similar like Tarom did. But more and more deeper we went in, and with the gross which we've been able to achieve, we are more and more inclining to the ideas that we will develop our program. But that program will be obviously open to cooperate with all the other airlines which will want to cooperate with us as well.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your cooperation with Turkish Airlines. My understanding is that there are talks with Turkish Technic in this case to develop the MRO activities here in Belgrade. What can you tell us about Air Serbia involvement in the MRO market and the work you're doing with other players in this field?
Look, it was discussed today on the conference as well that it's kind of natural to choose kind of closest regional, geographically available hub for the traffic which you cannot really serve. And for us, natural choice from the proximity, from the history, from the culture exchanges, geopolitical situation, Istanbul was basically the logical choice to develop as a hub. So we started to develop that in 2019, where basically we didn't fly to Istanbul at that time. And now within basically COVID, we've been able to expand that partnership with COVID, including the co-chairs, that now we are number one operator to Istanbul in terms of the number of frequencies. Together with the Turkish Airlines, we have more than 46 frequencies a week. So it's perfectly connected because every 2-3 hours we have some flight from Belgrade to Istanbul, and also including the regional airport in Serbia from Niš, we have operation from Morava. So anything going to the east, it's a natural, logical choice that via Istanbul is a perfect option. And based on that, we sign with Turkish Airlines Memorandum of Understanding, where we want to explore all the potential areas where we can have some synergies, and in some areas leading also towards the joint venture. One of the areas we are exploring is actually with the Turkish Technics, because as we're growing, as a fleet will be reaching let's say soon the significant number, we need to also explore the base maintenance option, hangar option, and these kind of things. And Turkish Technics is interested in the development that, so we are in initial stage exploring some kind of joint venture option and the project here in Belgrade. It's not the only option, we are exploring the others as well. And also with Turkish, we are exploring the other areas where we can find some synergies, because everybody want to grow the business and we want to grow it in the partnerships.
Because right now you do the MRO here in
at the moment we have different mix. So there is a hangar facility which is a Yat Technica, but has nothing to do except the old name with us. It's a private company which is part of Avia Prime. They have some other hangars in Slovenia and in Poland. So some of the base maintenance we do there, some of the line maintenance which we cannot do ourselves we do there. But also we want to diversify our portfolio. So a lot of base maintenance we do now. Some we do in Italy, some we do in Bulgaria. So we are basically very much open to all the MRO facilities in the region.
One more question I wanted to ask you. is about a topic that is really at the center of the debate now in aviation, which is sustainability. What initiatives or activities or plans does Air Serbia have in this field?
So look, sustainability, I mean, people talk more about it than they really do. That's one thing. And I think that a lot of people still dreaming about some new technology which can really change the market, which I don't think so. I think the only viable option is the SAF. But at the same time, you get to the problem of the production and infrastructure for the SAF. So what we do, at least on our side, what we can influence, because we cannot influence the other things, we basically started to modernize the fleet. So now we have the youngest fleet in the region. So wherever we can, we go to the, let's say, younger, more efficient fleet. At the same time, we are launch customer. Now we signed on the IATA AGM in Istanbul with Airbus. We are launch customer for DPO, like decent profile optimization software, including the idle software. We will be the first launch customer which combine both software together, which has the impact on the fuel saving. We have the program for our pilots. We are part of this SkyBreeze, let's say, program where we, with the pilots working how we can improve further. But it's not only when you talk about sustainability, it's always about the fuel emissions and so on. It's much wider. It's just about also, let's say, how much you are efficient in terms of the, your paperless, let's say, office and these kind of things. But at the same time, sustainability is also about sustainable business model, because what we see this summer, the question is we have to turn maybe also to sustainable tourism, because when you see the crowds and overflood in many destinations, the question is like, can we as a society cope with it? And you see some, destination are thinking about introduction of the, that you have to pay the entrance fee into the city, that you will be limited to certain number of days and so on. So I think sustainability is much more wider portfolios than just talking about the fuel, CO2. And this, because when you take sustainability, majority of 90% of the people start to talk about the emissions.
What next for Air Serbia? What should we be keeping an eye on in the near future in terms of developments or maybe some new announcements that you are planning?
I think first of all, as we started, so next week we are celebrating 10 years anniversary. So it's kind of new chapter, one decade closing, another decade opening. At the same time, we are 96 years old. So soon we will basically celebrate 100 years. So we already doing a lot of activities through the whole month of October, leading towards that anniversary. We will have some, presentation on exactly on the birthday as well. But, we don't want to stop there. So we want to continue to grow, to develop, to reach to the new markets. There is a lot of positives happening, which is giving us this much more easier. We mentioned that Beograd was chosen as a host city for Expo 27, which sounds far away, but it's around the corner, because that's a lot of development will be there before. It's forecasted it will bring additional 3 million passengers, which is nice, but at the same time, there's a challenge from infrastructure point of view, from airline point of view, to be ready, and to be ready with that extra deployed capacity to continue even after the Expo will end. We want to bring Beograd and Air Serbia more onto the map, because we reach now certain size. So this event today here in coordination with IATA is the first one. We announced today as well that Kappa World Summit in 2024 will be in Belgrade. It's already selected, and we would like to, more and more be engine of basically the economy and growth which we are, and develop it more further.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Marek, for this very detailed insight about everything that's going on right now at Air Serbia, which I think it's one of the airlines right now in Europe that is most interesting to basically to keep an eye on, because of all these developments in very diverse directions, a long-haul fleet, new destinations, and of course, as you mentioned, all this link with the growth in Serbia, but in the whole region, the Balkan region, the southeast of Europe, where there's a lot of development as well in the aviation air travel market.
Well, thank you for the invitation, and we want to set the examples to all the potential followers. And if you put all the stakeholders going into the same direction, having the same goals, it's possible. Even, state-owned airline can act as very commercially driven and can grow in reasonable matters and expand.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation.